All right, let's look at the half reactions for this specific reaction. We have silicon reacting with 2 molecules of fluorine, yielding 1 silicon fluoride unit. So what we want to do is identify our first charges. Looking at our rules, we would identify that free elements, such as silicone, have a charge of 0, meaning that they do not possess a charge. Fluoride, because there's 2 fluorines, and you can't have 2 negatives, as in fluorine would usually have a -1 charge. If it was an ion, you wouldn't have 2 negatives. So F2 is considered a free element as well, so it also has no charge. On the reactant side, you have silicone, which has a +4 charge, and you have fluoride, which has a -1 charge. You can look them up on the periodic table, or you can take the numbers that are below the 4 and bring it back up and across. Now that we have our charges established, we can look at what's actually happening, which half is losing electrons, which half is gaining electrons, and let's extract out just half of the reaction. So let's look at silicone. We know that silicone is going from a neutral charge to a cation. So Si is now a cation. What does it mean to be a cation? That's the question you have to ask yourself. It means you have to lose electrons. So when you go from an atom to a cation, you kick out electrons. Well, how many electrons are we kicking out? 4. Silicone has a +4, so that means it kicked out 4 total electrons. So from the reactant, the Si, the atom, to the products, the cation, you lose 4 electrons. That's why we're indicating it on the product side. We have the ion +4 free electrons. If you're losing electrons, that means you're being oxidized. And if you're being oxidized, that means you are the reducing agent. So we have half of the reaction. The second half of the reaction would involve our F2 molecules. Now we have 2 F2 molecules, and if you look at it, they have a charge of 0 initially, and they're going to a charge of -1. We have 4 of those ions, and I know 4 just by looking at this right here. We know that we have 4 fluorides because of the subscript, so we're going to indicate that we have 4 fluoride ions. Each of them would have to gain 1. Well, in the beginning, if we have 4 fluorine atoms and we have 4 fluoride ions, each ion gains 1 electron. So if we have 4 atoms, that means we would have to have 4 electrons being gained, indicating on the reactant side that we're taking atoms, adding electrons, forming anions. The substance that is gaining electrons is being reduced. And the substance being reduced is known as the oxidizing agent. You can see that everything balances out. We have 4 electrons being gained in the beginning, 4 electrons being lost. We have our oxidation reduction shown.